It was meant to be a perfect weekend getaway. A final taste of summer before the world spun back into its usual routine. For 27-year-old Claire Thompson and her 10-year-old brother, Jacob, this trip was a special treat. They drove all the way from Ohio to a quiet, secluded lakeside camp in northern Michigan. The date was late August 2019. The air was just starting to get that crisp, in-dove summer feel. The camp itself had officially closed to the public a week earlier, which was part of the appeal. Claire had friends who worked on the staff, and they generously let her and Jacob stay for 2 nights. This meant no noisy crowds, no blaring music from other campsites. It was just them, the dense woods, the still, dark water of the lake, and the gentle, rhythmic chirping of crickets. The ideal setting for some quality sibling bonding. The camp manager, a man named Rick, later recalled seeing them that Friday evening. It's a memory that would be replayed in his mind and in the minds of investigators countless times. He saw them sitting by the fire pit, the warm glow of the flames dancing on their faces as they roasted marshmallows. Claire, he remembered, looked up and gave him a friendly wave as he walked by, a wide, genuine smile on her face. Jacob was laughing, excitedly pointing a flashlight beam out across the dark expanse of the lake, its light bouncing off the gentle ripples. That was around 9:30 p.m. The picture of a perfect, peaceful evening. But by the next morning, that picture had been shattered into a million pieces. Claire and Jacob were gone, vanished. Their tent, which they had pitched near the water, was still zipped shut. Stepping inside, it was like a scene frozen in time. All their belongings were exactly where you'd expect them to be. Their clothes were neatly folded. Their phones, wallets, and car keys were sitting on a small blanket. All the food they had brought for the weekend was untouched. It was as if they had simply stepped out for a moment and never returned. The search began almost immediately. Friends, camp staff, and soon law enforcement fanned out across the sprawling grounds. The woods were dense, and the lake was deep. Every rustle of leaves, every shadow, held a terrifying possibility. They combed the shoreline, their eyes scanning for any sign, any clue, no matter how small. And then they found something. Near the edge of the wooden dock, half buried in the damp sand, were Jacob's shoes. One of them was lying on its side, but the other was standing perfectly upright. It was an odd, unsettling detail that no one could quite explain. Was it a sign? A message? Or just a strange coincidence in the chaos of a frantic search? As investigators delved deeper, they uncovered another piece of the puzzle, one that sent a chill down everyone's spine. They checked Claire's phone records, and there it was. At 11:42 p.m. on that Friday night, a call was made from her phone. A 12-second call to 911. When the dispatcher answered, there was no voice on the other end. No plea for help, no screams, no sounds of a struggle, just silence. And then, just before the call disconnected, the operator heard it. A single, distinct sound. A soft, audible breath. And then the line went dead. What happened in those 2 hours between the happy scene at the fire pit and that mysterious 911 call? Who made the call? Was it Claire, or was it Jacob? And what did that single breath signify? Was it a gasp of fear? A final, desperate attempt to speak? Or was it something else entirely? The police questioned everyone. The camp staff, Claire's friends who arranged the stay, anyone who might have seen them. But everyone told the same story. They were a happy pair, excited for their trip. There was no indication of any trouble, no strange figures lurking around, no arguments or distress. The search intensified over the next few days. Divers were brought in to explore the murky depths of the lake. Search and rescue teams with dogs scoured every inch of the surrounding woods. Helicopters flew overhead, their searchlights cutting through the darkness at night. But day after day, they found nothing. It was as if Claire and Jacob had been erased from existence. The camp, once a place of happy summer memories, was now the epicenter of a chilling mystery. The silence that Claire and Jacob had sought became a heavy, oppressive presence. It was possible, but Claire was an experienced camper. It didn't explain the untouched tent or the bizarre 911 call. Could they have had an accident by the lake? Perhaps, but the dive teams found no evidence of anyone falling into the water. And then there were the darker theories. Was there someone else at the camp that night? Someone who wasn't supposed to be there? The camp was closed, but it wasn't impossible for someone to have snuck in. The upright shoe by the dock seemed to suggest a deliberate act, a staged clue left by a third party. The 911 call remained the most haunting piece of evidence. 12 seconds of silence. In the world of emergency response, silent calls are not uncommon. They can be pocket dials or children playing with a phone. But this felt different. The timing, late at night from a remote location, followed by the disappearance of two people, made it sinister. And then there was that final breath. Forensics teams analyzed the recording, trying to enhance it, trying to pull any other sound from the static. But there was nothing, just that one solitary exhalation, ghost on the line. The community was heartbroken. Flyers with Claire's smiling face and Jacob's bright, boyish grin were posted everywhere. The local news covered the story extensively, and it soon gained national attention. People from all over the country offered their prayers and support. Volunteer search parties organized their own efforts, refusing to give up hope. But as weeks turned into months, and months turned into years, the trail grew cold. The case of Claire and Jacob Thompson became one of those lingering, unsolved mysteries that haunts a small town. The untouched campsite was eventually packed up, each item logged as evidence. Tent, the clothes, the foodall artifacts from a moment that would never be finished. Jacob's upright shoe was carefully collected, a strange and silent witness. The 911 call recording was listened to again and again, a 12-second loop of questions with no answers. For the Thompson family, the world stopped in August 2019. They were left in a state of agonizing limbo, caught between hope and despair. Every phone call, every knock on the door, could be the news they both longed for and dreaded. To this day, the woods and the lake in northern Michigan hold their secret. What happened to Claire and Jacob? Did they fall victim to a tragic accident, or did they cross paths with a hidden danger in the quiet of the night? Was the 911 call a cry for help that couldn't be voiced? Or a pocket dial that just happened to capture a final chilling moment? The silence on that call speaks volumes, echoing the emptiness left behind. The image of a campfire, a smiling sister, and a laughing brother is all that remains. A memory of a perfect evening before they vanished into the night, leaving behind only questions and a single haunting breath. By sunrise, the campgrounds were eerily quiet. The tents had been packed up, the RVs driven away, leaving behind only the faintest scent of wood smoke and morning dew. The only sign that anyone had been there at all was a single burned-out fire pit and two folding chairs left forgotten by the ashes. It was a typical Monday morning scene for Rick, the camp manager. He was doing his usual rounds, checking the sites and making sure everything was in order for the next wave of visitors. But as he approached the cabins near the lake, a prickle of unease ran down his spine. Claire's car, a silver sedan, was still parked in its designated spot. He remembered her and Jacob checking in just 2 days before, a young couple excited for a quiet weekend getaway. They were supposed to have checked out by 10 a.m. the previous day. Rick's unease quickly sharpened into genuine concern. He walked over to their rented cabin, knocked on the door, and called out their names. Silence. He tried the tent they'd set up near the water's edge. It was zipped shut, but a quick look inside revealed it was empty, save for a few sleeping bags and scattered clothes. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. At exactly 6:12 a.m., Rick pulled out his phone and dialed the local authorities. His voice was tense as he reported to missing guests. He gave their names, Claire and Jacob, and explained the situation. The dispatcher on the other end assured him help was on the way. Within a couple of hours, the quiet campground was transformed into a bustling hub of activity. Search and rescue teams arrived, their bright orange vests a stark contrast to the deep greens and browns of the forest. They established a command post near the main office, unfurling maps and coordinating their efforts. The teams fanned out, methodically sweeping the dense woods that surrounded the camp, combing the rocky lakeshore, and meticulously checking every hiking trail that crisscrossed the area. The initial theory was a simple one, and the most common in these situations. Claire and Jacob had woken up early for a sunrise hike and had simply gotten lost. Maybe they took a wrong turn, or one of them had an accident. It was a plausible explanation, that is, until the police made a discovery that blew that theory completely out of the water. Inside the couple's tent, tucked away near their sleeping bags, were Claire's hiking boots. They were perfectly clean, showing no signs of having been worn recently. Why would she go on a hike without her proper footwear? Didn't make sense, and that wasn't all. Jacob's bright orange life jacket was also found inside the tent. If they had decided to go for an early morning canoe trip or a swim, it was almost certain he would have taken it, especially since the lake was known for its chilly, deep waters. The more the search teams looked, the more questions they had. If they hadn't gone hiking and they hadn't gone near the water, where could they be? The team's initial optimism began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of dread. By noon, the search escalated. The authorities brought in drones, high-tech eyes in the sky equipped with thermal imaging cameras. They launched them into the air, the whirr of their propellers cutting through the quiet hum of the forest. The drones began a systematic grid search, scanning a 5-mile radius around the campground, looking for any heat signatures that could indicate a human presence. They scanned the woods, the open fields, and the entire perimeter of the lake. But the results were baffling. Nothing. Not a single heat signature that didn't belong to a deer or some other woodland creature. It was as if Claire and Jacob had simply vanished into thin air. Perhaps the most unsettling detail came from the lakeshore. The search team examined the small sandy beach and the wooden dock where the camp kept its canoes. There were no footprints, none at all, beyond the dock itself. The sand looked pristine, almost untouched, as if no one had walked there for days. How could two people just disappear without leaving a single trace behind? Just as the search teams were starting to feel they'd hit a dead end, a new piece of information came to light, and it sent a chill through the entire investigation. The police dispatch center, reviewing its logs from the previous night, confirmed that a 911 call had been placed from Claire's phone. The call came in at exactly 11:42 p.m. It was short, lasting only 12 seconds before the connection was lost. The investigators eagerly listened to the recording, hoping to hear voices, a plea for help, anything that could give them a clue. But the audio was frustratingly unclear. There was no speech, no discernible words. All they could hear was the faint, static-filled crackle of what sounded like wind blowing across the phone's microphone. And then, just before the line went dead, something else. A single, sharp, sudden intake of breath. A gasp. It was a tiny detail, almost lost in the noise, but it was enough to make the hair on their arms stand up. The audio file was immediately sent to the state's forensic lab for analysis. The audio experts went to work, using sophisticated software to clean up the recording and isolate any background sounds. They slowed the file down, amplifying the quietest parts. And that's when they found it. Hidden beneath the layers of static and wind, there was another sound. A faint but distinct metallic echo. It was a strange, clanging noise, like heavy chains being dragged or perhaps a large metal gate swinging shut. This new clue only deepened the mystery. Rick, the camp manager, was questioned again. He insisted there were no metal structures of that kind anywhere near the lake or the campgrounds. The docks were wooden, the facilities modern. Clanging metal gate simply didn't fit. The investigation might have stalled there, but a local news report about the missing couple caught the attention of an old man who had worked as a camp counselor there decades ago. He contacted the police with a piece of forgotten history. He told them that while there might not be any metal structures asterisk, now asterisk, their asterisk used asterisk to be one. He described an abandoned service tunnel that ran deep beneath the camp. It had been built many decades ago to house the main water and power lines for the entire property. The entrance, he recalled, was hidden behind a thick grove of trees at the far edge of the camp's property, beyond a rusty old "Do Not Enter" sign. He also remembered that the tunnel had been officially sealed back in 2005 after being deemed unsafe. At least that's what everyone was told. Armed with this new, chilling information, a small search team was dispatched that evening to the location the old counselor had described. They pushed their way through thick underbrush, their flashlights cutting beams through the encroaching darkness. And there it was. Just as he'd said, a rusted, weather-beaten "Do Not Enter" sign, half buried in dirt and fallen leaves. The team's hearts pounded as they scanned the area. And then, their flashlight beams fell upon it. Next to the sign, pressed into a patch of soft mud, was a fresh footprint. It wasn't Claire's, it wasn't Jacob's. It was small, impossibly small, about the size of a 10-year-old child's shoe. The woods were completely silent, but for the investigators standing there, the silence was filled with 1,000 terrifying questions. The sealed tunnel, the metallic clang, the child's footprint. A new, horrifying chapter of this mystery was just beginning. The sun had vanished behind the horizon, and the woods surrounding the lake grew cold and quiet. A 4-officer search team moved cautiously down a narrow dirt path, their footsteps muffled by fallen leaves. This path led them to an old maintenance tunnel, a place long forgotten. The warning sign, "Do not enter," was a ghost of its former self. Cracked in two, its letters obscured by years of mud and grime. Just past the splintered wood, they discovered a concrete hatch, almost completely reclaimed by the earth. A faded metal plate was still attached, its inscription barely legible. Service access, closed 2005. With a groan of rusted metal, they pried the hatch open. A wave of cold, damp air rushed out, carrying the scent of decay and stagnant water, a smell like a long-sealed basement. The tunnel sloped downward into the darkness, its concrete walls slick with moisture that shimmered in the beams of their flashlights. As they descended, their lights danced across a scene of urban decay, frayed wiring hanging like dead vines, pipes bleeding rust, and graffiti so old and faded it had become meaningless art on the walls. The only sound was the constant rhythmic dripping of water somewhere ahead, an unsettling echo that sounded like someone was walking just out of sight. About 50 feet into the oppressive dark, one of the beams landed on something on the tunnel floor. It was a flashlight. One of the officers picked it up, flicked the switch, and to their surprise, a weak beam of light cut through the gloom. It still worked. Wrapped around the handle was a faded sticker with the name Jacob, written in marker. A few inches away, another small object caught their attention. It was a single hair, tie-red, twisted and caked with dust. One of the officers recognized it instantly. Claire always wore one just like it around her wrist. It was her signature thing. The discovery sent a chill through the team, a silent confirmation that they were on the right path. But it was a path that led deeper into this unsettling place. They pressed on, the tunnel air growing colder, heavier. Soon, they reached a fork. The tunnel split into two dark mouths. The path to the right was a dead end, completely blocked by a massive cave-in of dirt and broken concrete. It looked impassable, sealed for years. That left only one option, the left passage. This one seemed to plunge even deeper into the earth, the darkness at its end, absolute and impenetrable. They followed it, their boots crunching on the gravelly floor. At the far end of this passage, they saw it. A steel maintenance door, standing slightly ajar, casting a sliver of even deeper blackness into the tunnel. Faded, stenciled letters above it read, "Pump Control." A sense of dread washed over them. Why would two missing teenagers be in a pump control room in an abandoned tunnel? Like taking a deep breath, they pushed the heavy door open. It swung inward with a prolonged, ear-splitting screech of rusted hinges. The room inside was small and claustrophobic, filled with the ghosts of forgotten machinery. Old, silent circuit boxes lined one wall, their switches and dials covered in a thick layer of dust. A couple of broken chairs were thrown in a corner, as if in a hurry. And there, sitting upright in the center of the room, was a backpack. It was unmistakably Claire's. One of the officers knelt and carefully unzipped it. The contents were mundane, yet heartbreaking. A half-eaten granola bar. Her wallet, with her student ID staring up at them, and her phone. The screen was a spider web of cracks. It looked completely dead. Hope was fading, but they had to try. They connected it to a portable charger they carried. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the screen flickered to life. It lasted for only 3 seconds. 3 precious, fleeting seconds before going dark again. But it was long enough. It was long enough for the screen to display the very last photo that was taken. At first glance, the image was completely black, a void, a picture of nothing. It felt like another dead end. But back at the station, under the meticulous eyes of the forensics team, the image was enhanced. They cranked up the brightness, adjusted the contrast, and pulled details from the digital darkness. And then they saw it. The photo wasn't empty. Tucked away in the far corner of the frame, barely visible, was a faint outline. It was two figures, two silhouettes standing close together in the tunnel. They appeared to be holding hands, Jacob and Claire. The investigators zoomed in, their hearts pounding. But it wasn't just the two teenagers in the photo. Behind them, something else was captured, something metallic and curved, catching the faint light from Jacob's flashlight. It was reflecting the light, like a door. A heavy round metal door swinging shut, a door they hadn't seen in the tunnel. The final piece of the puzzle was the timestamp. Displayed at the bottom of the photo, 11:43 p.m. They cross-referenced it with the emergency call logs. Claire's desperate 911 call, the one that was cut short, had come in at 11:42 p.m. The photo was taken exactly 1 minute later. 1 minute after she called for help, they took a photo of a closing door. And then, they were gone. The tunnel had been searched top to bottom, but there was no other door, no other exit. It was as if they, and the door in the photo, had simply vanished into the darkness. The case of Jacob and Claire remains open, a chilling mystery sealed in a single final photograph taken in the cold, dark earth beneath the lake. Detectives knew Claire's phone was their best shot, so they sent it straight to a digital forensics lab in Lansing. The phone was a mess. The lens was cracked, there was moisture inside the chip, and sand was wedged behind every button. It looked hopeless. But the analysts were good, really good. They managed to recover 12 photos, all taken on the night Claire and Jacob vanished, between 11:10 and 11:43 p.m. The first few photos were exactly what you'd expect from a camping trip. There was a shot of the fire pit with embers glowing in the dark. Another showed Jacob smiling as he roasted a marshmallow over the flames. A third captured the dark, glassy surface of the lake. They were normal, almost peaceful. But then, things got strange. Starting at 11:35 p.m., the photos took a dark turn. The images became blurry, chaotic. There were shots of trees, so close you could almost see the bark, but out of focus, as if taken while running. Another photo was just the ground, a blur of leaves and dirt. Then, a picture showing the inside of a flashlight beam, cutting a bright, desperate circle in the overwhelming darkness. And then there was the last photo, the 12th one. At first glance, it was just black, a void. But the forensic team didn't give up. They started brightening the image, playing with the contrast, pulling details out of the shadows. And as they enhanced it, something horrifying emerged from the darkness. The photo showed a narrow, man-made tunnel. And at the far end of this passage, standing near a large metal archway, were two figures, Claire and Jacob. They were just silhouettes, but it was unmistakably them. The shape behind them wasn't just a random door. It was a service gate, the kind you'd see on an old water drainage system. Investigators were baffled. They consulted old blueprints of the area, but this structure didn't exist on any of them. Camp engineers confirmed it. The old drainage tunnel in that area didn't extend that far. It was supposed to have ended 50 feet earlier, sealed off with concrete after a bad flood back in 1999. So what was this gate, and what were Claire and Jacob doing there? 2 days later, investigators returned to the spot where the kid's backpack had been found, but everything was different. The backpack was gone. The flashlight was gone. And the wall of earth behind where they had been lying was now covered in damp, freshly packed soil. It looked like it had been recently filled in. They brought in drilling equipment and started boring into the wall. A few feet in, they hit something solid. It wasn't rock. It was reinforced metal. Now, completely unnerved, the police started digging through the camp's old paper records, going back decades. In a dusty box labeled Property Incidents, buried under years of minor reports, they found a single faded document. It was dated August 19th, 1999, exactly 20 years to the day before Claire and Jacob disappeared. The report detailed the disappearance of 2 children during a violent summer storm. Their names were Amy and Luke Thompson. The detectives felt a chill run down their spines. Thompson, same. Last name is Claire and Jacob. But the report listed different parents. This didn't make any sense. They checked the camp's current registration records. And that's when they found the final, terrifying piece of the puzzle. Claire and Jacob Thompson were never officially registered campers. The booking for their campsite had been made using an old staff login, one that hadn't been active in years. There was only one person left to ask. They found the longtime camp manager, a man named Rick, and showed him the photos of Claire and Jacob. They asked him who had allowed them to stay at the camp. Rick looked at the pictures, his face pale. He was quiet for a long time before he finally looked up at the detectives, his voice barely a whisper. He said, "They told me they'd been here before." The implication hung in the air, heavy and cold. Had Amy and Luke returned, 20 years later, to finish what they started? Or were Claire and Jacob something else entirely? The case remains open, a dark legend whispered around the campfires at Blackwood Lake. A warning about the woods and the things that can get lost in them, only to come back. The photo analysis was all the authorization investigators needed. A full excavation of the sealed tunnel beneath the old camp was greenlit. Just 2 days later, the quiet woods were filled with the rumble of heavy machinery, each piece escorted by state police. The mission was clear: expose whatever was hidden behind that formidable metal barrier. Work began at sunrise. The air was crisp, the mood tense but determined. But by noon, the ground itself seemed to protest. A low rumble turned into a full-on tremble. The soil around the tunnel entrance, saturated from years of neglect, was unstable. Began to collapse inward, swallowing itself as if the earth beneath it was hollow. It was a setback, but also a clue. Something wasn't right. Once the crew cleared away the collapsed debris, they found something they hadn't expected. It wasn't the main tunnel entrance. It was a secondary shaft, a narrow vertical drop, sealed tight with a circular metal lid. The kind of thing you'd see on a submarine, not in the middle of a forest. Engraved on its rusted surface were 3 words: water control -1999. None of the engineers, some with decades of experience, had ever encountered a cover designed like this. It was custom, and it was built to keep something in or out. They didn't try to force it open immediately. Caution was paramount. Instead, they drilled a small hole into the edge, just large enough to insert sensors. The readings came back, confirming their suspicions. The shaft opened into a large, hollow space, roughly 20 feet deep. But it was the atmospheric data that sent a chill through the team. Faint but unmistakable traces of carbon dioxide, not from any geological source. It was the specific signature left behind by decaying organic material. Someone or something had been down there. The time was 3:12 p.m. when the decision was made. With a groan of tortured metal, the lid was lifted. A wave of stale, warm air washed over the crew, carrying a smell of damp earth and something else. Something faintly sweet and rotten. Searchers didn't go in, not yet. A high-resolution camera attached to a long cable was carefully lowered into the darkness. For the first few agonizing seconds, the feed on the monitor was nothing but gray static. Then, the image flickered and cleared. The camera's light cut through the gloom, revealing the scene at the bottom. 2 rusted metal cots were pushed against the far wall. Lying beside one was a single child-sized shoe, its lace still tied. And next to it, half buried in the dirt, was what looked like a plastic ID badge, laminated and miraculously preserved. The date on it read 1999, the name A. Thompson. That discovery was shocking enough, but it wasn't the most disturbing part. The camera panned slowly across the wall behind the cots. The rough metallic surface was covered in letters, dozens of them carved into the rust and grime. Some were old, etched deep and filled with corrosion. But others were fresh, the scratches bright and clean, cutting through layers of dirt as if they'd been made recently. They spelled out one chilling sentence over and over again: they never left. Who were they? And who wrote this warning? Before anyone could process the words, the camera operator, panning back toward the ladder, noticed a glint of light near the top of the shaft. He zoomed in. A small silver bracelet was caught on a protruding bolt, just below the opening. It was small, the kind a child would wear. The camera focused, and an engraving became clear. One name, Jacob. And then the feed cut out. Black screen. The camera cable had been severed from below. Panic erupted at the surface. The team leader grabbed the radio, trying to contact the 3-man crew who had been working inside the main tunnel, just feet from the shaft. Base to tunnel team, do you copy? Status report. Now, no one answered. Silence. For 10 full minutes, the only sound was the frantic calls from the surface and the dead air of the radio. 3 men were down there, unaccounted for. The silence was absolute. Then, a crackle. Faint static broke through the quiet. A voice came on the line. It was low, shaky, barely a whisper, filled with a terror that was palpable even through the radio. She's still holding his hand. That was it. The excavation was shut down immediately. There was no discussion, no debate. A state order came down, and the site was declared off limits. That very night, under the stark glare of portable floodlights, the entire tunnel entrance, including the secondary shaft, was resealed with concrete. Officially, the final report lists the discovery as inconclusive. No remains were recovered. The 3 workers from the tunnel team were eventually found, miles from the camp, disoriented and with no memory of the last 12 hours. But the story doesn't quite end there. As the last of the investigation team packed up their gear, the camp's long-dormant power grid, which they had monitored throughout the operation, logged a new connection. It came from a buried maintenance terminal, one that hadn't been active in decades. For a brief moment, before the entire system went dark again, a login ID flashed on the screen. C. Thompson status, active. 3 weeks after the dig, the camp was officially closed by the state. Fences went up around the property, and warning signs were nailed to the trees. Locals who once loved the lake now refused to go near it. Even the park rangers started avoiding the long road that led down to the old cabins. They said their radios would always cut out there. Always at 11:42 p.m. Back in Ohio, the Thompson family held a private service. They buried 2 empty coffins. Were no remains, nothing to lay to rest, just the single bracelet and the child's shoe that had been found beneath the tunnel. Claire's mother couldn't even bring herself to look at the photos from the excavation. Her father tried to find solace, saying, "If we don't have answers, at least we can have peace." But there was no peace. Not for the family, and certainly not for anyone who had been down there. One of the state engineers who worked the dig quit his job just a week later. He told a reporter that while he was closing the site, he'd seen lights down by the lake, 2 small, moving dots like flashlights swaying between the trees. He called out, thinking maybe some kids had snuck in, but the lights instantly went dark. Later that same night, his phone buzzed with a notification. It was a Bluetooth pairing request from a device labeled C. Thompson. The strange part? His Bluetooth wasn't even turned on. Meanwhile, the Michigan State Police filed their final report. The official conclusion was that the Thompson siblings were presumed deceased due to accidental entrapment. It was a neat, tidy explanation. But one detail stood out, a detail that didn't fit the story. The last GPS ping from Claire's phone didn't come from the tunnel. It came from the middle of the lake at 11:46 p.m., a full 3 minutes after her desperate 911 call had ended. Divers were sent in, twice. The mission was nearly impossible. The water was black with zero visibility. The bottom was a tangled mess of thick silt, ancient tree roots, and rusted metal debris from old water lines that had been abandoned decades ago. They searched for hours but found nothing. No clothing, no remains, and no evidence that the tunnel ever connected to the water. The official story held it was a dead end. But on the 3rd day of the search, one of the divers surfaced, visibly shaking. He tore off his mask and refused to go back down. When his team leader asked him what he'd seen, what had scared him so badly, he only said one thing: "It's not empty down there." Weeks turned into months. The story started to fade from the news cycle, becoming just another local ghost story. Then, one cold night in early October, a camper named Luke Harris decided to trespass onto the property with a few friends. They were filming a short clip for social media. One of those late-night ghost hunting challenges at the supposedly haunted lake. The video was never uploaded, but the sheriff's office recovered Luke's phone from his car, which was found abandoned at a gas station 20 miles away. His friends were never found. The phone contained several clips from that night, but the last one, time-stamped 11:43 p.m., was the most chilling. It just showed the reflection of the lake's surface. For the first few seconds, all you could hear were normal sounds. The wind rustling the leaves, the ripples on the water, the chirping of crickets, and then faintly a woman's voice. Clear as day it said, "Jacob, hold my hand." A second later, a smaller, younger voice replied, "Okay." The screen went black. Investigators initially dismissed it as an elaborate prank, a hoax created for viral fame. But when they analyzed the phone's metadata, they found something that made their blood run cold. They ran the audio through a frequency analysis, and the voice in the video perfectly matched the voice from Claire Thompson. What an IS 911 call from August 2019. It had the same static signature, the same background wind noise, the same shaky breath at the end of the sentence. It wasn't a recording, it was a live capture. Now, every summer, the rangers who patrol the area say the same thing happens. Around midnight on certain nights, the water on the lake turns perfectly still. There's no wind, the insects fall silent, and an unnatural quiet descends on the forest. And sometimes they say, if you stand quietly on the old wooden dock and listen closely, you can hear two sets of footsteps walking just beyond the tree line, one heavier, one smaller. Then a splash. The camp remains fenced off. The state never made another official statement. The case is closed, filed away. But if you were to somehow gain access to the state's internal database and look up closed case 2019-2087, you would find something unsettling. The activity log for the case, which should be dormant, still updates once every year, always on the same date. August 30th. At exactly 11:42 p.m., a single line of text is added. Camp access approved. C. Thompson, J. Thompson. And below it, a final note automatically generated by the system reads status: active.